Mr. Doggett.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Chairman. There is a report out today, as you know, that the Federal Reserve, 6 months into a compensation study of the country's 28 largest banks, has found that many of the bonus and incentive programs that economists say contributed to the worst financial crisis since the Depression remain in place. If the remainder of your study confirms that to be true, will the Fed do anything about it? Will it act this year rather than letting another year slip by? And what are some of the policy alternatives you have to deal with these compensation practices by our largest banks?
Well, absolutely we're going to respond. We did a series of surveys and questionnaires to try to understand what the pay practices were and whether they were consistent with safe and sound banking and good incentive structures. As the report says, we found that many banks have not modified their practices from what they were before the crisis. We anticipate an interagency guidance on this matter within the next few weeks. So we will be putting out a set of criteria and a set of expectations very shortly, and we will be pushing the banks to move as quickly as possible to restructure their compensation packages so that they will not be engendering excessive risk-taking. So we will be doing that very quickly. We hope to have a public report about this near the end of this year, early next year, but I want to assure you that the actions we'll be taking will not wait for the report. We'll be immediately working with the banks, and we have been working with the banks already to get them to modify their compensation practices.
You believe we'll see real, genuine change in compensation practices from before this downturn to now, that people will be able to tell the difference?
The structure of the compensation practices needs to change so that there's not an incentive to take excessive risks. You know, packages where the trader gets all the upside and none of the downside. That's the kind of thing we're trying to get rid of.
What do you believe would be the best estimate of the dollar cost to the taxpayers of TARP?
Well, the direct cost for financial institutions, it's including AIG, I would say is at this point not very large. Except for AIG, every other major institution has repaid with interest and dividends, and AIG, I believe, will repay. So the financial institution part, the direct cost is, I think, really quite small, and may in the end be, in fact, a profit. That doesn't include some of the other uses to which TARP was put, such as the automakers' support and the foreclosure program. Those, the Treasury's provided numbers on those. I think they have an overall cost of about $110 billion for the program.
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Schwartz made reference to the Small Business Lending Fund Act, which, as you know, is pending here in the House. Without getting into all the details of the legislation, do you believe that we need to take more action to assure the flow of credit to small businesses, or are the efforts that you've described that are underway at the Fed sufficient?
Well, I think both the Fed and the Congress and the administration ought to be looking for new ways to get credit flowing, because that, to my mind, that's one of the dangers to the recovery, that job creation and small business growth will not be sufficient to sustain the momentum. And so I would ask you to put this on your priority list.
Thank you. And one of the areas that we have had some controversy over in the past is the concept of auditing the Fed. You made your views clear on that. The Senate narrowed significantly the audit provision that the House overwhelmingly passed. If something the same or similar to the Senate measure is adopted, how do you see that audit working?
The Senate measure opens up all of our financial transactions, all of our financial controls, all of our financially related activities, and therefore ensures that the taxpayers' money is, as it is, but you will be able to see that the taxpayers' money is well protected and well used. And that, I have been saying from the very beginning that we are absolutely comfortable with that, and we are quite satisfied that, that we have an agreement to do that. We will cooperate in every possible way. We are already working with GAO on AIG, for example, and we will make sure that all this information is available to the public, that much of it already is, but whatever isn't will be put out. The concern I had about the House version of the bill was that it also included an audit of monetary policy, which essentially involves Congress asking the GAO to evaluate the Fed's monetary policy decisions, which in my view is inconsistent with the independence of the Fed to make monetary policy decisions and would be disruptive to confidence in the Fed on the part of the markets and the public. So I would strongly urge you to retain the 1978 exemption for monetary policy from GAO audits, which is not a financial audit but a policy review. We are perfectly fine with throwing open our books on all dimensions to the Congress to assure you that we are using the taxpayers' money appropriately.